Hello everyone, my name is Chi-Shih Jao. I'm from University of California, Irvine, working in MicroSystems lab, supervised by Professor Andrei Shkel. In this presentation, I'll be talking about zero velocity detector for foot-mounted inertial navigation system, assisted by a dynamic vision sensor. In this project, we're working on self-contained localization. Self-contained localization is important for firefighters or first responders because they often operate in environments where all the signals, such as GPS, LTE, Bluetooth, or Wi-Fi, are unavailable. In such environments, inertial navigation systems are the only options. However, the problem with inertial navigation system is that the estimated position drifts because of noisy IMU measurement. For pedestrian navigation, Zero Velocity Update Algorithm, or ZUPT, has been used to improve the error of inertial navigation system. The ZUPT algorithm uses foot-mounted IMU and the knowledge that the velocity of the shoe is very close to zero when on the ground. In the upper plot, I'm showing 5 images of a pedestrian walking corresponding to different phases in the gait cycle. In the first image on the left-hand side, right foot of the pedestrian was on the ground and was in stance phase. In the swing phase, the foot first took off the ground, traveling in the air, and then landing on the ground. In the last image, the foot was on the ground again. During the stance phases, the ZUPT algorithm feedback pseudo measurement of zero velocity and calibrate the IMU measurement. This approach has been shown to effectively reduce navigation error. However, one challenge part of ZUPT INS is the question how to detect stand and swing phases. The most commonly stance phase detector is the shoe detector. The shoe detector has a likelihood statistic computed based only on IMU and a predefined threshold. The bottom plot shows an example of the likelihood statistic and the threshold of a gait cycle. Y-axis in this plot is the log likelihood and x-axis is the time. The shoe detector compares the statistic and the threshold. If the statistic is higher than the threshold, then the shoe detector determines a swing phase. Otherwise, it determines a stance phase. However, the drawback of the shoe detector is that the statistic drop when the shoe is in the air because during the period, the IMU is more stable than the takeoff and landing period. The drop of the statistic often leads to false alarm. For example, if we use a threshold indicated by the red line in this plot, then during this period, the foot was in the air, but the statistic was lower than the threshold, which generates a false alarm. To address this problem, some previous work has tried to use other non-inertial sensors to assist the shoe detector. For example, shoe embedded pressure sensor or shoe mounted downward facing range sensor. But for those systems require that shoe contacts the ground. In some scenarios, such as climbing up on the ladder, those systems may fail to operate. In this presentation, we use an event-based camera to assist the shoe detector for zero velocity detection. The measurements of the event-based camera correspond to the motion of the foot and does not have the requirement of contacting the ground. I'll give some background on event-based camera, also known as dynamic vision sensors, or DVS. DVS has been used for different purposes, for example, object detection, SLAM, or ego motion estimation. The biggest difference between a DVS and a CMOS camera is that the DVS asynchronously detects light intensity changes, called events. The video on the right-hand side shows an experiment of rotating fan recorded by the DVS. Each of the red and blue particles indicates an event. The video on the left-hand side shows the same experiment recorded by a traditional CMOS camera. One thing to notice here is that the DVS generated more events when there was motion inside the field of view, and less events when there was no motion. The total number of events generated in a frame is defined as the firing rate. With this definition, we can say that the firing rate increases when DVS detected motion and decreases when no motion is observed. In this presentation, we use the DVS firing rate to enhance the performance of zero velocity detection. Our approach for enhancing the zero velocity detection is to use measurement from a foot-mounted DVS. The plot on the left-hand side shows the experiment platform for this project. The platform was previously designed to study sensor fusion techniques for pedestrian inertial navigation. The shoe in the picture was integrated with IMU ultrasonic sensors, barometric altimeters, CMOS camera, and DVS. In this presentation, we only use IMU and DVS. The DVS was mounted on top of the IMU. We used the platform to conduct indoor walking experiment. An example of the DVS firing rate collected during the walking experiments is shown at the right-hand side. The y-axis is the number of events and the x-axis is the time. The plot includes 3 complete gate cycles. We observe that the firing rate increases during the swing phases and the firing rate decreases to a low value during the stance phases. The image with green frame shows a DVS image taken during the swing phase, and the image with red frame shows a DVS image taken during the stance phase. We can see that the number of events being generated during the swing phase is much higher than the stance phase. Coming back to the firing rate plot, notice that the DVS firing rate maintains a consistently high value throughout the entire swing phase, and this property does not belong to shoe statistic. These measurements prove that the DVS firing rate can be used as a reference to the stance phase detection. Recall that the shoe detector has a likelihood statistic computed based on IMU measurement. In this presentation, we present the DVS-aided shoe detector, or DVS shoe. The complete derivation and mathematical expression of the DVS shoe are presented in our full paper. Here, we demonstrate the concept of the DVS shoe. The DVS shoe has a likelihood statistic computed from not only IMU measurement, but also the DVS firing rate. The plot in the slide shows the statistic of both the shoe detector and the DVS shoe detector in one gate cycle. The shoe detector is colored in orange, and the DVS shoe detector is colored in the blue. The orange area in the plot corresponds to the period where the shoe is traveling in the air during the swing phase. The y-axis is the log likelihood, and the x-axis is the time. In previous slides, we discussed that the statistics of the shoe detector decreases when foot is traveling in the air. We can also observe that in this example. For the DVS shoe, we can see that the statistic inside the orange area maintained at a relatively consistent level. If we use a threshold indicated by the green line in the plot for the shoe detector, then a false alarm was produced. However, with the same threshold value, the false alarm was eliminated by the DVS shoe. This example shows that the DVS shoe has a reduced false alarm rate as compared to the shoe detector. In order to understand how the DVS shoe can improve navigation performance, we conducted a series of indoor closed-loop walking experiments. The trajectory included terrains of flat plane, stairs, and ramps. The pedestrian was walking at a speed of 75 steps per minute. The experiments were conducted at the Engineering Gateway building at University of California, Irvine, and repeated 10 times. The duration of each trial was 120 seconds. A reference trajectory and a floor plan are shown in the plot on the left-hand side. In each trial in the series of experiments, we estimated the destination with ZAP-80 INS using both shoe detector and the DVS shoe detector. The final locations are presented in the 2 plots on the right-hand side. We use a circular error probable, or CEP, to evaluate the navigation error. The CEP is defined as the circle that encloses at least 50% of the data. In this series of experiments, the radius of the CEP is 1.2 meters when shoe detector was used, and 0.9 meters when DVS shoe detector was used. The improvement in navigation accuracy are the results of the improvements in performance of zero velocity detection. This series of experiments shows that the CEP is reduced by around 26% when DVS shoes was used. In conclusion, in this presentation, we first discussed that the firing rate of a foot multi-DVS could be used as a reference to the stance phase detection. Then we compared the likelihood statistic of both the shoe detector and the DVS shoe detector. At the same threshold level, the DVS shoe detector eliminated the false alarm generated by the shoe detector. Lastly, we evaluated the navigation performance of the shoe detector. The experimental result shows that the CEP when DVS shoe detector was used is improved by 26%. This project is funded by National Institution of Standard and Technology, NIST. Thank you for participating.